You wake up to the sound of something breathing. Not a person, not the wind. Something heavy, something close. The darkness hides everything beyond a few meters, but your instincts are already screaming. Don't move. You remain perfectly still. Then, somewhere beyond the trees, a deep growl rolls across the night. Your entire family freezes. No one speaks. No one feeds the fire. No one dares to make a sound. Because somewhere out there, a predator is deciding whether your family survives until sunrise. For millions of years, this wasn't an extraordinary night. It was an ordinary one, long before walls, before locks, before metal weapons, before even the first villages. Our ancestors lived every single day knowing they could become someone else's dinner. Today we think of ourselves as the rulers of the natural world. But for nearly all of human history, we weren't standing at the top of the food chain. We were somewhere in the middle. Every trip to collect water, every search for berries, every walk across an open plain could become the last journey of your life. Yet somehow, our ancestors survived. Not because they were stronger, not because they were faster, not because they had sharper teeth or thicker skin. The answer was something far stranger. Every predator forced humans to become a little smarter. Every close escape became another lesson. Every lesson became another advantage. And over hundreds of thousands of years, those tiny improvements transformed one of nature's weakest primates into the most dangerous species the planet has ever known. To understand that transformation, we first need to forget almost everything modern life has taught us. Today, if you hear a strange noise outside your home, you turn on a light. You lock the door. You call someone for help. Ancient humans had none of those luxuries. Darkness wasn't simply inconvenient. Darkness belonged to something else, something that hunted. Travel back nearly 2.5 million years. Early members of the genus Homo looked surprisingly vulnerable. Their brains were much smaller than ours. They had no controlled fire, no permanent shelters, no metal weapons, no buffs, no shields, no written language, no maps, no farms, no cities. Nothing separated them from the dangers surrounding them. Their bodies offered almost no natural protection. They had no claws, no fangs, no armored skin, no thick fur. They couldn't sprint like a cheetah. They couldn't overpower a bear. They couldn't smell danger from far away. Biologically speaking, they looked much more like prey than hunters. Unfortunately, the animals sharing their world had evolved for exactly the opposite purpose. Across the African grasslands, giant cats waited silently inside tall grass. They didn't chase unless success was almost certain. Nearby roamed enormous hyenas, with jaws capable of crushing massive bones. Along rivers floated crocodiles that looked almost identical to fallen logs. In colder regions, gigantic cave bears towered over humans like walking walls of muscle. These weren't monsters from myths. They were real animals, perfectly adapted for survival, perfectly adapted for killing. Humans weren't special to them. We weren't dangerous. We were simply another possible meal. Imagine walking toward a quiet river after hours beneath the hot sun. Your throat burns with thirst. The water is calm. Birds sing nearby. Everything feels peaceful. You kneel. You lower your hands. But beneath the muddy surface, something has already been watching. It doesn't roar. It doesn't chase. It waits. One movement. One mistake. 1 second too close to the edge. That's all it takes. Ancient humans quickly learned an uncomfortable truth. The deadliest predator was often the one you never saw. So why didn't our species disappear? The first breakthrough wasn't a weapon. It wasn't fire. It was each other. One human alone was vulnerable. A group became unpredictable. 20 humans became intimidating. Modern scientists describe part of this as the dilution effect. The larger the group, the lower the probability that any single individual becomes the victim. But mathematics wasn't the only advantage. Groups could do something individuals never could. They could cooperate. When danger appeared, everyone reacted together. Voices echoed across the landscape. Hands reached for stones. Branches became clubs. People moved as one. They didn't need to defeat the predator. They only needed to convince it that attacking wasn't worth the risk. That strategy worked because predators fear injury almost as much as starvation. A lion with a broken leg rarely survives. A leopard with an injured shoulder may never climb effectively again. For predators living one successful hunt away from starvation, every attack is a calculation. Is this meal worth getting hurt? A frightened antelope usually is. A loud group throwing rocks from every direction often isn't. Without understanding psychology, Our ancestors were already using it. Fear works both ways. Predators frighten prey, but prey can also frighten predators. Not through physical strength, through uncertainty. Generation after generation, the humans who stayed together survived more often. Those who wandered alone disappeared. Nature rewarded cooperation long before humans understood why it worked. Still, cooperation had limits. Eventually, the sun disappeared. Night changed everything. Most large predators preferred hunting under darkness. Human vision became almost useless. Every shadow looked dangerous. Every snapping branch demanded attention. Then came perhaps the greatest challenge of all: sleep. Think about what sleep really is. Every single night, humans voluntarily become unconscious. Their awareness fades. Their muscles relax. Their reactions slow dramatically. For nearly 1/3 of every day, they surrender control over their surroundings. In a prehistoric world filled with predators, sleep wasn't simply rest. It was vulnerability. So our ancestors searched desperately for safer places. Many climbed into trees. Chimpanzees still build sleeping nests high above the ground every evening. Early humans almost certainly did something similar. Trees weren't perfect. Leopards could climb. But compared with sleeping on open ground surrounded by lions and hyenas, trees offered a meaningful improvement. Later, humans discovered caves. Stone walls blocked the wind. Rain stayed outside. Only one entrance required protection. At first, caves seemed almost perfect, until humans discovered another uncomfortable truth. They weren't the first creatures looking for shelter. Cave bears, hyenas, large cats. Many had already chosen the same homes. Living inside a cave often meant competing directly with the very predators people hoped to escape. Archaeological evidence shows that humans and large carnivores repeatedly occupied the same caves across thousands of years. Safety was never permanent. Every solution created another challenge. But humans kept adapting. And then, everything changed. Fire. People often remember fire because it allowed humans to cook food. Cooking was revolutionary. But it wasn't the first reason predators began fearing humans. Fire transformed something even more important: the night itself. Almost every large land predator possesses an instinctive fear of flames. Not because another animal taught them, because evolution did. Wildfires spread unpredictably. Lightning ignited forests. For millions of years, fire represented uncontrollable danger. That ancient instinct never disappeared. When humans learned to preserve fire instead of simply finding it after lightning strikes, they gained something no predator expected: a boundary. Light pushed back darkness. Smoke drifted through the forest. Heat warned approaching animals long before they reached the campsite. For the first time, humans possessed a silent guardian that never became tired. Night still belonged to predators, but not entirely anymore. For the first time, the darkness had to share. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this journey into humanity's distant past, consider subscribing to Human Stories. Every week, we explore the forgotten discoveries, extraordinary survival stories, and scientific mysteries that shaped who we are today. Because the greatest adventure in history is the story of our own species. And the next breakthrough would teach predators to fear humans from a distance. The next breakthrough looked almost insignificant: a sharpened wooden spear. Compared with the claws of a lion or the jaws of a crocodile, it seemed almost primitive. Yet that simple invention solved one problem the human body never could: distance. Before spears, fighting a predator meant standing close enough for it to fight back. That almost never ended well. A saber-toothed cat needed only one successful leap. A cave bear needed only one swing. A crocodile needed only one bite. The spear changed the rules. Humans no longer had to stand within reach. They could strike from several meters away. Later, they learned to throw. For the first time, predators could be injured before they ever reached their target. And something fascinating happened. The predators learned. Animals remember danger remarkably well. A lion wounded by a spear doesn't forget. A leopard that barely survives an encounter with humans becomes more cautious. A hyena driven away by a determined group carrying weapons begins searching for easier prey. Fear slowly changed direction. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans had feared predators. Now predators slowly began fearing humans. But perhaps the greatest weapon humans ever created couldn't be carved from wood. It couldn't be sharpened. It couldn't even be held. It was language. Imagine a young child who has never seen a lion. Without language, that child must learn through personal experience. Often, that first lesson would also be the last. With language, everything changes. A mother can say, Never drink from that river after sunset. An elder can explain, if the birds suddenly stop singing, don't wait, run. A hunter can describe fresh footprints. A grandmother can remember the valley where several people disappeared years earlier. Knowledge no longer dies with the people who earn it. It survives. It spreads. Every frightening encounter becomes protection for someone who wasn't even born yet. Animals inherit instinct. Humans inherit experience. That single difference transformed our future. Every escape became a lesson. Every lesson became a story. Every story became another tool for survival. Eventually, humans stopped remembering individual dangers. They began remembering entire landscapes. Modern ecologists call this the landscape of fear. Most animals naturally avoid places where predators hunt. Humans did something extraordinary. They shared those maps. One valley belonged to lions. One cave belonged to bears during winter. One river hid crocodiles beneath calm water. One patch of forest was safe only during daylight. These maps weren't carved into stone. They lived inside conversations, inside memories, inside families. Every generation inherited a larger survival guide than the one before. Slowly, something remarkable happened. Humans stopped simply adapting to dangerous landscapes. They began changing them. Campfires pushed predators farther away. Groups defended valuable water sources. Hunters expanded into territories once controlled entirely by carnivores. The world was no longer shaping humans alone. Humans were beginning to reshape the world. Then, another unexpected advantage appeared. Running. At first, that sounds ridiculous. Almost every large predator is faster than a human. Lions can sprint at astonishing speeds. Even wolves can outrun us. So how could running ever become our advantage? Because humans were never built for speed. We were built for endurance. Most mammals cool themselves by panting. That works well, until they keep running. Sooner or later, they must stop. Humans are different. We sweat across almost our entire bodies. That simple ability allows us to cool ourselves while continuing to move, hour after hour. This led to one of the strangest hunting strategies ever developed. Persistence hunting. Instead of chasing prey in one short burst, humans simply refused to quit. The animal sprinted away. Humans followed. The animal rested. Humans kept walking, again and again. Eventually, heat and exhaustion overwhelmed even the fastest prey. Humans succeeded, not because they were faster, but because they stopped later. Once again, intelligence defeated strength. By roughly 50,000 years ago, our ancestors had become something entirely different from the frightened primates who once hid inside trees. Fire, language, planning, cooperation, memory, tools, endurance. None of these advantages alone changed history. Together, they changed everything. Predators had spent millions of years evolving sharper claws. Humans had spent the same time evolving better ideas. Ideas spread through a tribe within days. Genes require generations. That difference became humanity's greatest advantage. One successful strategy could protect hundreds of people. One discovery about fire could spread across an entire region. One warning about a dangerous valley could save children who would never meet the person who first discovered the danger. Learning became faster than evolution, and that may be the most powerful ability any species has ever developed. Eventually, humans stopped reacting to predators. They anticipated them. They planned around them. Then they hunted them. Many of the giant predators that once ruled prehistoric landscapes slowly disappeared. Some lost territory. Some were hunted directly. Others simply couldn't adapt quickly enough to an opponent capable of inventing new solutions every generation. The irony is remarkable. For millions of years, predators shaped human evolution. Then humans began shaping theirs. But perhaps the greatest lesson isn't that humans became stronger, because we never really did. Compared with bears, we remained weak. Compared with lions, we remained slow. Compared with wolves, we remained poorly armed. Our greatest strength was never physical. It was our willingness to learn. Every predator became a teacher. Every mistake exposed another weakness. Every weakness inspired another solution. Every solution gave the next generation a slightly better chance of surviving. Civilization didn't begin with cities. It began with memory. It began with cooperation. It began with parents teaching children lessons written not in books, but in survival. Today we live inside houses, protected by walls, electricity, medicine, and technology. It's easy to forget how recently those comforts appeared. For almost all of human history, our ancestors survived with little more than one another. Not because they were fearless. They weren't. Not because they never failed. Many did, not because they were born extraordinary. They weren't. They survived because every generation refused to let the previous generation's suffering be wasted. Every close escape became knowledge. Every successful idea became tradition. Every child inherited a world slightly safer than the one their parents entered. That is the real story of humanity. Not the story of becoming stronger than nature, but the story of becoming wiser than yesterday. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's distant past, please subscribe to Human Stories. Every week, we uncover the forgotten moments, archaeological discoveries, and scientific stories that reveal how ordinary people survived extraordinary worlds. Because the greatest story ever told isn't the story of kings or empires. It's the story of how millions of ordinary humans refused to disappear. The claws disappeared, the giant predators vanished, the darkness slowly retreated, but the ideas remained. And in the end, ideas proved stronger than teeth.